Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Brandon Cobb, co founder of HPG Capital. And today I've got Peter Neill on the show. He is the co founder of GSP REI. What do you hear where this name came from? This is the first question I'm going to ask him. This is really, really cool. Peter played an active role in managing the company and its various fund offerings. 6 different funds, actually 7, maybe 7 at this point, over $90 million raised. He oversees all aspects of the business, including acquisitions, construction, property, asset management. He's in charge of fulfilling the company's fundraising goals. I mean, and I was looking at their website. I think they've bought or constructed over $500 million worth of real estate. That is a lot of real estate. Peter, welcome to the show.
Brandon, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, this is going to be exciting. Okay, so I was on y'all's website looking you guys up, and I'm going through this again. This is an investment firm. So imagine people in suits, professional photos. I'm scrolling down through the team. And then all of a sudden I see a dog and it says company mascot. And I could see if I was going to maybe like the Tennessee Volunteers football website or something like that, but not like an investment firm. And it's a professional photo taken of the dog. Tell us about this and where GSP's name came from.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I always love to answer it. And if you see that picture, that was not easy to get. You know, these dogs. So, GSP stands for German Shorthaired Pointer. They're a pointing dog. It's a hunting dog. They're known for being very loyal. A ton of energy, just bouncing off the walls. I mean, that kind of thing. And they're hunters. You know, they're focused. I mean, they dial in on something, and you know, if they're going after it, they're going to get it. So back in the day when myself and my partner Ron and Wade came together, we were looking at, you know, we didn't want to be typecast. You know, we didn't want to be like, oh, the workforce housing fund or the single family fund or something like that, because we very much take a opportunistic, you know, somewhat asset class agnostic approach to real estate. We have a diverse background in all types of commercial real estate and residential and, you know, from distressed mortgages to hotels and multifamily. I mean, you name it. And we've done a lot on the construction side too. My partner Ron's been in construction and construction management over the last 20 years. So right now we invest a lot in workforce and affordable housing because we feel like that is a very good play. But we didn't want to, you know, call it the single family fund or the workforce housing fund or something like that. So we called it GSP REI because we thought that what the dogs embody and their energy and just their brand, really, you know, was something that we thought we embodied as well, you know what I mean? And the energy and just the overall drive, you know what I mean? We take that to our real estate investing and the way that we operate our business. So that's why we did that. My partner Ron has 2 right now. My partner Wade has 1, and he's had him his entire life since he was a kid. I wanted to get one, but when we started the company, and both of them told me like these dogs are too crazy. You're not gonna start a business and get a puppy, you know, GSP puppy. So I ended up with a beagle. So she's a hunting dog, but and I love her because she can sleep all day. I'm sure she's probably laying on a sofa as we speak. She actually got out of bed early this morning. I was shocked. You know, it's 11 o'clock my time, and there's days where she's still in bed. You know, but then if I want to go, you know, we want to hit up a park, or you know, there's a lot of good woods and things like that around here. She is game, and she can keep going. You know what I mean? So she's perfect for me. But love the GSP, the German short hair pointers, and we've really thought that embodied who we are and our energy and what we bring, you know, our brand overall.
I love it, man. You guys win mascot of the year award and the team award for sure. I can't tell you how surprised I was when I saw that.
That's
So,
funny.
for those that don't know who you are, what's your story?
Yeah, so I mean, my story is yeah, growing up, my dad was a facilities manager, a property manager. He worked for CBRE. He had a couple different worked for a couple different outfits, but you know, CBRE for a while, and managing office, industrial. When he retired, he had a portfolio of Bank of America's. So I saw what he was doing in real estate, and I just thought, I don't know if that's for me. You know, during time where there's storms or bad weather or things like that, it'd be 2 o'clock in the morning. I'd hear him in the other room, on the phone. And I just thought, man, I don't know if I want to do that. So I went to school for media business and entrepreneurship. I thought I was going to work in the television space and radio, something like that. And when I got out of school, I ended up taking a job at a distressed mortgage investment company. It was advertised to me more as like a real estate investment company, but their main focus was distressed mortgages. And it was a boutique firm, so I took the job in sales and marketing, and they sold courses and things like that. But because it was a small firm, and everybody's in small firms, you tend to wear a lot of hats, that kind of thing. The president and CEO was very, very busy, and he had a lot going on. He was a prolific investor beyond just distressed mortgages and all. And he's really the one that introduced me to, single family and small multifamily, and kind of similar strategy to what we do today. But I started picking up the phone, and started to talk to investors, and it really grew the investor relations department at that company. They also ran a group for accredited investors, so it saw all kinds of different opportunities come through there, and that really opened my world to the alternative investing space and investing in real estate. And I never look back. It's something that I so many times I'm dealing with people, accredited investors in our funds, and that they're older than I am. You know what I mean? And they'll tell me how fortunate I am to be in this space, and I know it. And it's something I don't want to take for granted. So I was fortunate, through my network. It was about 5 years ago. 5 years ago, yeah, it was even more now because it was earlier in the year. We started. I got together with my partner Ron and my partner Wade, my other partner Brian. It was real estate's a small world. So it's just like, you know somebody, chances are they know somebody else, that kind of thing. And we started GSP, and my background is in investor relations and fundraising. I would say like some corporate strategy type stuff. You know what I mean? Working at a boutique firm, seeing them grow. And then my partner Ron, he does construction. He was in real estate finance. He's worked as a consultant for universities and businesses that are growing their real estate plan. My partner Wade's done a whole lot of different stuff, and one of them being a lot of distressed mortgages and that kind of thing. And so very good at acquisitions, very analytical, that kind of stuff. So that was, it was the making of a pretty good team where we all had our lane, we all had our strengths and what we like to focus on. And that's kind of how GSP was born. Those guys were using personal money, friends and family. I came into the mix wanting to learn the operation space. I bought my first house when I was 23 or 24, and it was pretty much turnkey. I've certainly done work to it over the years, but I realized if I really wanted to be successful in this business and make a full-time job out of it, having some skills in the construction space, being able to manage construction, all that kind of stuff. And then property management was going to be important. So that's why I wanted to partner with Ron and Wade and, people older than me that's done a lot more and have a lot of diverse experience.
Yeah, you guys have, I mean, y'all bought a lot of property, raised a lot of money. One of the things you guys focus on, I know, is single family rentals, which is interesting because usually, let me rephrase this, you don't see a lot of firms going after single family rentals. It's
Sure.
usually, hey, let's go buy an apartment building because we can easily buy 100 units, right? Where
Yeah.
as single family rentals, Main Street, I would say, is more involved in that. And so to really aggregate a portfolio of those, you got to make a lot of transactions, right? You can
Sure.
buy 100 unit apartment complex in one transaction, whereas single family rentals, you might have to do 30, 40 transactions, or
Yeah.
if it's
Do 100
someone who just
transactions.
happens, yeah, 100
Yeah.
transactions, if it's all individual owners.
Yeah.
Walk us through what's the strategy? What's the investment thesis behind that? And how are you able to go about scaling a single family
Mm.
rental portfolio as massively as you guys have done?
Yeah, my partner Wade at one point was managing over 700 doors, and that was prior to 2008. You know what I mean? Like institutions like Invitation Homes and American Homes for Rent and Tricon, like they weren't doing that at that time. You know what I mean? So he has some crazy stories about growing that portfolio. And then after '08, people, those kinds of institutions and firms and government service entities and things like that approaching him because he was one of the only people in the country that managed the freaking portfolio that large of single family homes at that time. Now you have Invitation Homes managing 100,000 loans, that kind, properties, that kind of thing. But for us, it really comes down to supply and demand. That's where we see there's in our markets. We're in the Philadelphia area. We invest a lot in Baltimore. We invest in Philadelphia. We invest in South Jersey. Massive demand for single family rentals. Massive supply constraints in the single family space. And then it's just our core competency. My partner Ron has been in the construction business for over 20 years. There's guys that are working for us on our crew. We do everything in house from a construction property management standpoint that have been with him for over 15 years now. So we can execute in that space, and not that we couldn't buy apartment buildings and execute in that. And we certainly have. We've looked at a few over the years, 30 unit buildings to 300, 400 and up, and everything in between. But we haven't been able to make the numbers make sense on those deals as much as we have been able to with buying individual scattered site deals. And we'll buy small portfolios here and there, but a lot of times that product has existing cash flow, and so you're paying a premium for that. Whereas when you buy dilapidated homes, vacant, just totally distressed properties, you're going to get them at the absolute best price point. You're also not competing with regular homeowners. That's a lot of the problems and some of the main street types or Wall Street type stuff you hear with single family homes is they're competing, with regular homeowners. They're driving prices up and things like that. When you're buying fully dilapidated homes, you're not even typically competing with other investors. A lot of other investors want the value add type stuff. They're not, chances are they're maybe not vertically integrated, and they want to just kind of throw lipstick on it and rent it out or, sell it for a quick profit, that kind of thing. We like the fully dilapidated home, something we can buy. Typically it's going to be south of 30,000. And then rebuild, take it down to the studs, maybe even the brick wall, and just rebuild a new home within those 4 brick walls. And at that point, it's going to be less management, typically less maintenance work moving forward for us, because you're handing over almost new construction to the tenant. So it comes back to understanding ourselves, having that life assessment, and career assessment and what are we good at? What resources do we have? And single family is one of those things that we can execute in, and we can buy, we're fortunate in the markets where Baltimore has over 13,000 vacant homes. This is a very scalable, repeatable strategy in that market. I was just talking to somebody earlier today. He's in North Carolina. You can't do that there. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
So not every market's going to, you're going to be able to do that in. But one thing I like about workforce and affordable housing is that it is a strategy that's somewhat insulated from a lot of the craziness just because of the supply and the demand, massive constraints on supply, massive demand, and really nothing happening at a state or federal level that's helping with that, and a lot of times where the help does come into play is development of apartments, of affordable apartments,
Right.
and that's great. You need that. When you're 7 million plus homes underbuilt, you're going to need that to make up for it. But we see a lot of people in these markets and the types of properties we're buying and all in the areas that we're buying, they want single family homes. They want that option. They want to be in a 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom with a bath and a half, 2 baths, that kind of thing. So that's where that's what we've been playing in over the last couple of years. And I think we're going to continue to do it as long as it makes sense. And,
So how are you guys going about acquiring the properties? So, for example, I've fixed and flipped a lot of houses. I think at the max we were, doing maybe 35, 40 homes per year back, 6 years ago.
mm-hmm.
And we were spending $30,000 a month on marketing to
Wow.
go out and find these distressed
Sure.
houses. How are you able, because y'all are doing it at a big, like way bigger scale, you're buying hundreds of these things. How are you able to go out and find the properties? Are these bank owned properties? You're going to the bank and buying like portfolios of them. And how are you able to outcompete a lot of the mom and pop investors to scale this, is to scale your single family rental portfolio?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I would say, I mean, we're probably about a similar clip right now too. You know what I mean? So we're not buying hundreds of homes at the moment. You know what I mean? That's like kind of collective over our careers, that kind of thing. You know, you've clearly never been to Baltimore. That's what people say that to me. If you drive around Baltimore, there's a lot of opportunity. You know, there's a lot of vacant homes. It's harder to find in Philadelphia. You know what I mean? If we stayed in the Philadelphia market and only bought there, we'd probably be in a similar situation to you there, where we would need to really be spending money to find deals and just heavily market that kind of thing. In the Baltimore market, there's a lot, like I said, over 13,000 vacant properties,
Wow.
over 20,000 vacant lots, you know, so there's a lot of opportunity to redevelop existing product, that kind of thing. And Baltimore has a very active auction market. You know, whereas like in Philadelphia, we've never bought a property from an auction. You know, in South Jersey, we never bought a property from an like an online auction. You mean that kind of thing. Baltimore has a very active online auction scene, so we buy a lot from auction sites. And then I mean, we work with wholesalers. You know, when you own a lot of product, you know, you tend to
Yeah.
get calls from wholesalers. You know, where they say, hey, I
See.
got this property over here. You know, is this on the street that you're on? You mean that kind of thing. So we're able to just consistently pick up, you know, deals on a monthly basis that way. And, you know, you kind of, there's the tools in the tool belt, right? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of different ways you can do it. Back in the day when I first met Ron, uh, he was buying a lot from Wade, which I knew Wade for years prior to meeting Ron, and it was through government service entities. And we were getting a lot of foreclosure product in New Jersey. That's really why we were in the New Jersey market. We're not there so much nowadays. So it ebbs and flows, and I mean that kind of thing. But in Baltimore, this strategy and buying dilapidated homes is a very consistent strategy, very scalable, very repeatable, ton of demand. And if you're in the right pockets, there's rental demand and there's for sale, you know, regular people buying homes demand as well. That's a very important metric for us. We want to see that other people are buying homes, and it's not just investors, you know, because a lot of people will say, oh, workforce affordable housing, are you investing in war zones? Definitely not. You know, I mean, in war zones, you typically only see investors buying. We're buying in areas where we have the ability to rent the home, or we have the ability to sell it if we'd like to. Though we tend to hold and refi and rinse and repeat, that kind of thing. But we like to be in areas where we could do both if need be.
Wow. All right. So a lot of relationships is what I'm hearing.
Sure.
Wholesalers.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And
Yeah.
you kind of you said a key thing there is you're focused on markets where it's not difficult to
Yeah.
find stuff. Like Nashville, Tennessee, very difficult to find stuff. There's a lot of
Yes. Yeah.
competition here. Baltimore, you're the first guy that I've heard about Baltimore, and in my experience, Baltimore's not super sexy because there's
Sure.
a lot of things that city, just being completely honest, they've done a terrible job of. I mean,
Definitely.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of crime in Baltimore. I think it's nicknamed Bloody Moore, but that presents
I
an
feel like I've ever heard that one
opportunity.
before, but yeah,
It presents an opportunity to
it
buy,
does. Yeah.
when you create that, because things come back around. So I love what you just said there. Y'all focus on areas where it is easy to find deals, spend the time and effort in the areas with the low hanging fruit. I know that you've raised quite a bit of money, over 90 million bucks at this point. Was all that for single family rentals?
Well, the bulk of that was for distressed mortgages, which are
Okay,
backed by single family homes. You know what I mean?
gotcha,
So, a lot of my fundraise has been in the residential side of the
gotcha.
business. And then but we've done about 11 million in fundraise for specifically for this strategy in single family homes. Yeah. And
Okay,
just to go back to what you were saying, you know, we are very much contrarian investors. So like when everybody else is running, you know, we're running when they're running away, we're looking at running towards, you know,
yeah.
and we've always been that way. You know, my partner Wade has been doing that for many years in certain markets in Chicago and things like that on the note side of the business. So you know, it's in a lot of ways, it can, if you know what you're doing, it can be easier to operate and find deals in those types of areas. Not that Baltimore isn't competitive, believe me. There's definitely funds that are buying in that area. There's individual buyers that are buying. People that are local. There's people coming from out of state and out of country and things like that. But it's exactly. It's not like Florida or Phoenix or the Midwest. Where you're not only do you have a very active scene of locals and people that live there, but you have people from all over the country, investors and institutions
Yeah.
and things like that, flooding those markets. We haven't seen that, and we haven't seen it in Philadelphia either. And coming from Philadelphia has its issues too. Probably any major metropolitan area on the east or west coast has the same problems to varying degrees. And so you really need to know where you're investing, where you're buying, have your pockets. And Baltimore is even more kind of knowing the area to invest in, because Philadelphia is the same way, but the
Yeah.
areas maybe are a little bit bigger, that kind of thing. But Baltimore is a big city, and you got to know, where to invest. And there's a bunch of different things that we do. And at this stage of the game, we pretty much have our areas pretty well defined. But there's a lot that goes into that. Kind of going back to your question of like, why not multifamily, or why, I think multifamily is great for a number of reasons. And for most investors, why you see so many people doing it is because that's what makes sense. Being able to utilize third-party management, being in a sexy area where there's growth and appreciation and things like that. But you got to look at things when you're investing this way, more from a micro standpoint. And there's a lot of the micro signs in Baltimore have been really, really good, and their unemployment was at like 3.8% in July, so
Mm.
kind of close to historic lows there. Eighth largest metropolitan GDP. A lot of good employers like John Hopkins and Under Armour and McCormick's and things like that. So there's a lot of positives when you get past kind of like, I love when people say they hate Baltimore because it's like, I know there's going to be opportunity there compared to like
Yeah.
other markets where it's like you're getting so much attention. It's harder to find deals and things like that. So I think for a well diversified portfolio, there's a place for both. But to go and do it yourself, your chances are you're gonna run into some headaches and things like this. There's gonna be a learning curve.
Yeah, 100%. I'm curious with the money side of things.
Yeah.
We've had a
Mhm.
lot of guests on the show talk about raising capital and strategies. The investor relation side of things, that is a really important part. When you think about
Sure.
growing a business, the very successful businesses figure out how to keep their customers. Because if
Yeah.
your churn rate, if you're losing customers, you're constantly having to go get more and becomes difficult to grow. That's why I like the rental business is once you acquire an asset, you have a customer for life. That customer
Mm.
might change, right? The tenants
Mhm.
might change, but you got a customer for life. It becomes very easy to scale that business. And the same thing applies to capital raising. You've got to figure out how to keep the investors.
Yeah.
What does a day in the life of look like of a successful investor relations specialist?
Yeah, a lot of phone calls. I think it's very important. I had a mentor, really good friend of mine years ago who said to me, the phone right here, if you pick this up, you're going to be successful in this business. And there's some truth to that. There's a lot obviously that goes into being successful in real estate, depending on what it is that you do and the skill sets you need and the partnerships and the resources and the network, that kind of thing. But, a lot of it just has to do with picking the phone up. And if you're not available, getting right back to people. I've had investors, a lot of investors, just a handful of investors say to me recently, they were adding money into the fund. Uh, and they had another investment that they liked. It was making a great return, but the transparency stunk and the communication was even worse. And, they just, you send an email or you make a phone call and the guy's not getting back to you for weeks and weeks and weeks on end,
Yeah,
if he ever
I've
does.
seen
You know what
that.
I mean?
That's
So
what I've seen personally, because I invest in stuff too, and the communication sucks
Eh,
most of the time.
Investor relations at the end of the day comes down to just really good communication, and the approach that I take to it is just trying to be real with people at the end of the day. I mean, having real conversations. We do quarterly review calls. So like our financials will go out on a quarterly basis, and then we'll do a review call with typically in a week or two after that to give people time to review it. And then we'll take it and we'll walk through, there's a written explanation in the beginning, and then there's the P&L on the balance sheet, the portfolio, we'll go through everything line by line, because we understand we have investors at varying degrees of
Yeah.
knowledge, and some people it's like they don't know and they don't even care to know. You know what I mean? Or maybe they do in the sense of they want to come on and they want to listen to it, that kind of thing. But we have other investors who it's like, as long as they're getting a check, you're not going to see them. Like I always joke, like if you see a lot of investors on our review call, chances are we probably did something wrong. It's like a lot of people are they're investing, they want to be passive. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. But I love the investors that are curious. And I mean, I love the people that ask good questions, that challenge you, and challenge your thesis and all that kind of stuff, because that's how you grow. At this stage of the game, I'm doing it long enough where it's like you probably haven't thought of anything we haven't thought of, and we do that ourselves all the time. But I find it to be very refreshing. Not that I don't like the low hanging fruit, and the people that are like, oh, here, I see you on here and there, I'll try it out. I mean, that kind of thing. But I love just having really good conversations. I love this business. I love pretty much every aspect of it. I'm very passionate about it. So it's easy for me to have great conversations in that sense. And I'm curious too about the investors and what their experience is, I mean, what they're looking for, what goals they have, and how we could potentially meet them. So I think one of the most important things you can do from an investor relations standpoint is ask good questions and then meet the investor where they're at, because you're going to have emotional investors and you're going to have logical investors. It's like you have the engineers and you have the entrepreneurs and the salespeople and executives and things like that. And the engineers, the logical people, they're going to want to hear about the deal. They're going to want to hear about the thesis. They're going to want to hear the strategy. Everything that goes into it. How you get from point A to point B, that kind of thing. The emotional side is more, how do you guys know each other? You know what I mean? What does a day look like? How do you operate? Who's on the team? What's the experience? What's the background? What's the track record? All that kind of stuff. Overall, the supply and the demand, the thesis in that sense, but maybe not so technical in the numbers. So I think it's important to ask the right questions, know who you're talking to, know what their experience level is and all that kind of stuff, and then meet them on their level so that you can answer it in the way that they want to be spoken to and that kind of thing. And then have a really good balance between emotional and logical. I mean, no conversation should just be one-sided. Even if the investor just wants that, it's important to me that there's no surprises here. I mean, that they really understand what it is that we do. And not that everybody's going to understand it. And I get some crazy questions sometimes from people that it's like, God, we've been doing this for years. I know you're on those calls. You know what I mean? Why are you asking me that question? It happens. You know what I mean? I get it. People have their lives going on and things like that.
Real
But
quick, real quick.
Mhm.
What are some of the questions that you said the key is to ask good questions and to have the right balance of emotional and logic? So let's cut that up
Yeah.
real quick. What are
Yeah.
some good questions? What do you ask?
Yeah, I always start the conversation off with, if you don't mind me asking, what do you do for a living? Because that'll give me a really good idea of what their background is. Are they in IT? Are they medical? Are they an attorney? Or are they
Yeah.
executive, kind of thing? And not everybody wants to ask that. That's why I'll say, like, if you don't mind me asking, you know what I mean? Because some people are private, you know what I mean? And, I've maybe once or twice over thousands of phone calls have I ever gotten pushback on that question, but it gives you an idea, and it paints a picture and that kind of thing. And then what are you investing in? Like give me an idea, like what's your investing background? Is it stocks, bonds, and mutual funds? Is it traditional stuff, Wall Street? Are you new to alternative investing? If they are new, I mean, what was your introduction to the space? You know what I mean? Like what kind of media and content are they absorbing and things like that? Because sometimes that'll answer like why they're asking certain things. I mean, a lot of times people have these like templated, they probably literally printed it off from like a PDF of like, here's what you should ask a sponsor. And it's
Yeah.
like, not every question's going to fit every person. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, so it's like, and I get why you ask those, and you got to check the box, that kind of thing. So to try to understand like what their experience is, what their background is, where they get their information from, all that kind of stuff, and then what their goals are. You know what I mean? Like, what are they investing for? What do they like to do beyond investing and that kind of thing? What's like the greater purpose? You
You're
know what I mean?
just
All
getting to
that kind of
know
stuff.
them, basically.
Exactly. Building rapport, getting to know them, just collecting information that can help you to meet them on their level and present what it is that you do in a way that it's gonna understand. And if there is an alignment, it helps you to make that alignment. And if there isn't, yeah. It's you want to get to that as soon as possible as well. You know what I mean? So it's just
Yeah.
like I think that's why asking really good questions. That would be my recommendation to somebody on a fundraising side, and it works the same way for the investor too. You know what I mean? If you're an investor looking at deals like this, the questions that you ask is what's going to make or break. And be able to see if this is a good deal or a good sponsor. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Yeah. One of my favorite questions is, hey, hypothetically, let's say the relationship works out. What's a win-win look like for you coming out of your new relationship like this? I
Yeah,
want them getting talking about what's important to them, right? If they've
yeah,
talked about some past deals, what went wrong? What did you like? What did you not like? Where are you trying to get to? Because my job is trying to figure out, like, hey, where is it that they're trying to get to, and what are the
yeah.
obstacles in their way, and how does my product or service help remove those obstacles? So very clear picture. You talked a little bit about balancing the emotion and logic.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, so like I said, the emotional side is typically the team, the partners, the deal from a general perspective. You know what I mean? Like what's the supply and the demand? What's the strategy? What are you buying? And for us, it's like we're buying single family homes. There's a supply constraint in the area. There's really high demand. We're fixing them up. They're dilapidated. We do everything in house, all that kind of stuff. The logical is more, we're buying those for south of 30,000. We're putting $100,000 into them. We want an ARV at 200.
Yeah.
We're gonna do an AR. We're gonna do a loan to value at 70%, and we're gonna get all of our cash back. We're gonna redeploy that. We have construction, property management in house, like all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of different levels of pretty much the same thing. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
it's also just kind of to use a term that's real popular nowadays, it's like the vibes, behind the fund, and the brand, and like just the culture and all that kind of stuff. I think that's super important. I mean, I talk to people sometimes where it's like, 30 years of doing this, it's just like it's not, they've lost the passion, right? If they ever freaking had it to begin with.
Yeah.
And I get it. You know what I mean? I've been doing this for 10 years, maybe I'll re-examine, in another 20 and see how I feel. But I look at my father, he was property manager, he was facilities manager. He retired during COVID, and at least once a day, a couple times a week, he'll be like, boy, I miss it. I really, I'd love to get back into doing it. Like there's because when he retired, he was managing a portfolio Bank of America's. A new one just opened up across the street. I'll walk the dog with him, and we're talking, and he'll walk by and be like, man, that would have been that would have been my bank. I'm right here. It would have been great. I could walk there, all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So it's like, not everybody's that way. I want to hear, what are you passionate about what you do? Do you like it? Do you love it? What do you not like? What do you don't like? And then the things that you don't like, how are you, who's on the team, all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the emotional and the logical side of just the sponsorship and then the deal itself, that kind of thing.
I love it, man. Peter, we're about out of time. If people want to learn about more about you, learn more about your firm, GSP REI, where can they go?
There you go. Just stick a .com on the end of that. So gsprei.com. Start there. You can find out more about, who we are. You can see the dog. You can check out Brody. You can, we have a learn section, so there's presentations and things like that on there. But you can schedule a call with me. I always like to have a conversation and learn more about what it is that you're doing and how we can potentially help. So don't be afraid to set up a call and let's have a conversation. So I would start there, and obviously social media and things like that too.
Peter, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks for coming on.
Brandon, thanks for having me. It was great being here with you.